okay? Idioms, all right? An idiom is an expression, for those of you just learning, since this will be uploaded later, we're on page 124 in our handbook. An idiom is an expression which is peculiar to a language and which cannot be easily explained or analyzed. So peculiar to a language, idioms, basically something that you would say that you've only heard the people around you talk, basically. For example, we can use good evening as a greeting, but not good night, something like that. We can say he is hard of hearing, but we can't say he is hard of seeing. So just some expressions like that everybody kind of knows what you're talking about, but they're not exactly easily to explain. Like, how can you explain hard of hearing? You know what I mean? So stuff like that, those are idioms. Often the meaning of an idiomatic expression cannot be derived from the individual words in the expression. The phrase to catch one's eye does not physically mean to, capture their eye, but it means to capture one's attention, right? So idioms, they make up a large part of our language and add color and vigor to our writing, but we must be careful to use idioms accurately and appropriately. When you use a lot of idiomatic expressions, sometimes people aren't really understanding what you mean. They don't get the saying. So look at 31.1. Use correct idiomatic English. Native speakers ordinarily have a little trouble using idioms correctly, especially if they grow up around those who use the language properly. Perhaps the most common mistakes is the use of the wrong preposition from certain verbs, adjectives, and nouns. For example, the powder adhered with the surface, okay? You don't adhere with the surface, you adhere to the surface, like sticking to the surface. You don't stick with it, right? So a lot of people kind of use the wrong prepositional phrases with different expressions like that, okay? For example, you are accused of, not you are accused with treason, or you're accused of treason, or something like that, accused of a crime. Adept in, a lot of people say adept at. Averse to is the correct form, not averse at. Avail oneself of. Charge with, not charged for. We actually hear that one a lot when people say they are charged for the crime, or they are charged for burglary or something like that. But actually, the correct thing is they are charged with burglary, okay? Comply with, desirous of, different from. And actually, this one might be a little more common to us as well. You're different from somebody. You're not different than somebody or different to somebody. Descent from, enamored of, essential to, independent of, not independent from. When America obviously was independent, it's not they are independent of Britain, not independent from Britain. So just things like that are part of a correct idiomatic expression. And then 31.2, use effective and appropriate idioms. For example, letter A, avoid wordy idiomatic expressions if a more concise expression can be used without sacrificing effectiveness. For example, suddenly may be used instead of all of a sudden, and tolerate instead of put up with, okay? I actually see a lot of these, like whenever girlfriends are posting with their boyfriends or whatever, they're always like, thanks for putting up with me or whatever, but they're basically saying, thanks for tolerating me or something like that. So just different words that you can use instead of different idiomatic expressions, but still have the same effect. Letter B, avoid idiomatic expressions that smack of triteness. For example, put one's foot in one's mouth and raining cats and dogs. Okay? Avoid idioms that are not appropriate to your purpose for writing. For example, some idioms are colloquial, dialectal, slang, or illiterate. So idioms could be just kind of made up. So just be careful of putting those in your writing. And then if you have ever any questions about an idiomatic expression, check a dictionary, all right? So let's try it in our workbook. Go ahead and turn to page 60. Sorry, give me 1 second. 62, exercise 18. Okay, so we're just correcting idiomatic expressions. to accord with standard formal English. So number one, make sure prepositions are used correctly in the idioms. Eliminate wordy, trite, inappropriate idioms. Okay, so wordy, anything that kind of detracts from the purpose of the sentence. Again, you can just write this in your book. That's fine. All right? Page 62. Number one, do you prefer sirloin steak over T-bone steak? Okay. In this case, we know it's the prepositional that tells us we need to change it. Okay. So in this case, who knows what you would use, what preposition you would use with the word prefer? Would you prefer it over something, class? You would have to change that. So who knows what we can change that to? Good. Okay. Do you prefer sirloin steak to T-bone steak? Okay. That sounds a little weird because I think everyone's kind of used to saying prefer this over something else, but the actual correct expression is preferring it to something else. Okay. Number two, all right, this would be kind of like a trite expression, all right, but that's not correct in standard formal English. Okay. Number two, Seth really rubs me the wrong way. What is that actually saying there in standard formal English, class? Okay, Seth really bothers me. Seth really irritates me. Remember, we're trying to change things to standard formal, all right? You wouldn't write really rubs me the wrong way when you're talking formally. That's more conversational, informal, okay? So standard formal, you wouldn't say Seth really rubs me the wrong way. You would say Seth really irritates me or gives me the wrong impression or something like that, okay? Number three, in order to meet your deadline, you need to plan on working during the evenings and on Saturdays. Okay? Something that we could change here. All right? What would we change in this sentence? Do you know, Noah? In order to meet your deadline, you need to plan on working during the evenings and on Saturdays. Class, do you plan on something? Yes or no? Okay, no, actually you plan to do something, okay? You don't plan on something, you plan to do something, all right? So what would we change here? Good, you need to plan to work. Good. In order to meet your deadline, you need to plan to work during the evenings and on Saturdays. Doesn't it sound a little different, like, oh, that's incorrect? Because it's so common nowadays that we speak whatever idioms that we may hear, but we don't really realize that we're using the incorrect form. So that's why it kind of sounds a little weird. But you need to plan to work, not plan on this, okay? Number four, when it comes to eating refreshments at a party, Jackson has a tendency to go off the deep end. Okay, what do you think this sentence is saying here? When it comes to eating refreshments at a party, Jackson has a tendency to go off the deep end. He eats too much. Good, okay? Jackson has a tendency to eat too many refreshments at a party, or Jackson eats too many refreshments, something like that, okay? Going off the deep end is informal, all right? Definitely a trite expression that some people don't really understand, okay?
Refreshments like drinks?
Refreshments or like hors d'oeuvres, snack stuff. Number five, last one. Mr. Ingersoll decided to go whole hog and buy the most expensive car on the lot. Okay, what do we think he did here?
I agree with Noah.
What do you think we did here, or what's wrong with this sentence? Okay, whole hog. What does that mean? He took a pig to the car dealership, like a hog? Mm-hmm. Yes. What was it, Emma? Okay, he went all out. How could we say that in standard formal English? Okay, he went all out. Is that formal? No. That's everyday conversation. Okay, when you say, oh, he went all out, what do you think he meant by that? Okay, splurge. Good. He decided to splurge and buy the most expensive car on the lot, or he decided not to scrimp, or he decided not to be, what's it called, stingy or frugal or whatever, and he bought the whole lot. Something along those lines, saying, instead of saying he decided to go whole hog. That basically means he went all out, but still, what does it mean to go all out, all right? So he decided not to scrimp or to save and to buy the most expensive car on the lot. That's what it means with idioms, just using the correct form of idioms, okay? We won't have grammar tomorrow, so we will just focus on literature, so make sure you read those pages. Let me give you those one more time. Pages 324 to 327, no vocab homework tonight, okay? All right, make sure you also are working on your papers. That is due next Friday, so if you guys have any questions, Christian, I did get your text yesterday. I forgot to respond because I wasn't by my computer, but I'll send that to you today. All right, you guys are dismissed. Yeah.